Oftentimes, it's not surprising to hear that in order to have a good relationship with somebody, that relationship needs to have good chemistry with one another in order to make that relationship work. Because if both of the people in a relationship are very different, whether it's because of personalities or because of the different things they prefer doing, then it's not surprising if the relationship doesn't last long. And quite recently, an anime that has become one of my all-time favorites, Shoshimen How to Become Ordinary, managed to tackle this kind of subject. Even though the series wants to focus more on mysteries, which is not surprising if you know who the creator is, since the same person who wrote Shoshimen is also responsible for the creation of Hyoka. That anime also focuses on mysteries as well, but just like Hyoka that also had elements of romance, Shoshimen is no different from Hyoka in that aspect. As in the first season, we mainly focus on the relationship between Kobato and Osanai and the dynamic that they have when they are together, as even though they try to act like ordinary people, that's easier said than done due to their very interesting personalities, with Kobato always having a fascination in trying to solve mysteries that for others may be unsolvable, but for him, he's up to the task to solve it. And with Osanai, despite her seeming to be like a very ordinary girl who just loves sweets, there's another side of her that is much more darker, a side that she's willing to show if people cross her or if people are enemies with her. And it's these odd personalities that is the reason why they're both able to really be close and they're both able to be perfectly fine being next to each other. But despite this chemistry that they both have, it also had its limits. And when Kobato realized just how far Osanai was willing to go to take down her enemies, going as far as to even fake her own kidnapping, it was there that Kobato realized that maybe Osanai wasn't the best person to always be around with, which is why during the end of season 1, we not only saw Kobato and Osanai go their separate ways, but we also saw them meet new people and try to make new relationships with other people, with Osanai going out with a boy named Tokahiko Urino and Kobato starting a relationship with Tokiko Nakamaru. And it's very obvious why Osanai and Kobato were very quick to accept these relationships, and it's because they were trying to accomplish the goal that they weren't able to do so with one another, and that is to become ordinary people. But when season 2 dropped and half of the series was dedicated into showing us the relationship between Osanai Urino and Kobato and Nakamaru, we started to notice just how both of these relationships did not have any good chemistry whatsoever. When it comes to the relationship between Osanai and Urino, it was very obvious from the start that this relationship wasn't going to last too long because of just what kind of person Osanai is. At first, it looked like Osanai was willing to give this relationship a chance, although in saying this, it's obvious from the many conversations that Osanai had with Urino, it was clear who was in control of this relationship. And it was not Urino, since oftentimes he was very oblivious as to what Osanai was truly trying to say in their conversations. But still, Osanai tried to make this relationship work, as she even went as far as to encourage him to go and solve the arson case, a case in which Urino was very interested in since he wanted to find the arsonist who was responsible for creating different fires in different areas. And she was also the one that was responsible for convincing the newspaper club to let Urino write stories about the arson mystery. But like I said earlier, all it takes is one little action for Osanai to be against you and you regret making her angry. So when Urino tries to kiss Osanai by surprise, instead of just simply talking to him and telling him that what he did was not okay and that the next time he should ask before trying to do something with her, she does the opposite, as by that point it seemed that Osanai had completely given up on Urino and have completely given up on this relationship. So the next time Urino and Osanai interact, you could tell right away that Osanai is trying to make sure that Urino looks like a massive idiot when trying to solve this arson case, by making Urino think that she is the one responsible for setting up those fires. And due to Urino being so naive, and unlike Kobato who looks at all possible scenarios and tries to make sure that he has investigated every part of the mystery, the same can be said with Urino. So when Urino thinks that he has solved the mystery and that Osanai is the arsonist, he gets a brutal reality check by Osanai, and she does not hold back, not only making Urino realize the type of girl that he got involved with, but also the fact that she had no problems devaluing him, and she had no problems telling him straight to his face that this relationship that they had was nothing more than just an experiment to see if Osanai can be an ordinary girl, which in the end she reached the conclusion that that cannot be the case when it comes to her. But while Urino and Osanai's relationship was never going to last long just because of the type of person that Osanai is, the same can be said with the relationship between Kobato and Nakamaru, as it seemed at first that Kobato was really trying to make this relationship work and trying to be a normal person by spending time with his girlfriend Nakamaru and doing things that you will see couples do on a daily basis. Going out, talking to each other frequently, and doing things to make sure that that special someone is happy. But as this relationship continued, cracks started to form, and we started to notice very quickly that even though it seemed that Kobato was trying to have a good relationship with Nakamaru, his old habits were still there. And no matter how hard he tried to get away from mysteries and his urge to solve them, that didn't mean that it was going to go completely away. And more importantly, just because he's in a new relationship, it doesn't mean that he has truly forgotten about Osanai. Something that becomes very apparent when Nakamaru asks Kobato if they could go to another place after spending time together, and Kobato lists many locations that they both can go, but the problem is that the locations that he is naming are all places that he used to go with Osanai, something that Nakamaru was able to pick up very quickly. And when they're both having a conversation together and Nakamaru asks Kobato a simple question, this being why did he accept being in a relationship with her if he hardly knew her, Kobato just simply responds by saying that she looked like a good person, which confuses Nakamaru because how can he tell that she's a good person if they hardly interacted, since before the only person that he seemed to talk to the most was none other than Osanai. And what this scene also exposed as well is of course Kobato's obsession with mysteries, as it's during this conversation that Kobato tries to bring up the arson case, something that Nakamaru is quick to shut down as she has no interest in that case whatsoever, showing that unlike Osanai, who was able to tolerate Kobato's obsession with mysteries and his determination to solve them by any means necessary, not every girl is like Osanai. And even though Kobato is showing signs that he's not truly committed to this relationship and it's more just simply an afterthought for him, it doesn't mean that Kobato is the only problem in this relationship. It's also Nakamaru, because as it turns out, Nakamaru has also been doing some very questionable things behind the scenes behind Kobato's back. When Kobato, to the surprise of nobody, starts to get involved in the arson case and wants to solve it, he and his friend Kengo Doijima start to look for clues by first talking to several people. And when they talk to a girl named Yoshiguchi about the relationship that Osanai and Urino have, while Kobato is not surprised that Osanai and Urino had a relationship, what does catch him off guard is what Yoshiguchi says about Nakamaru, and that is that she's heard that Nakamaru is actually dating multiple guys, making Kobato the third man that she's dating at the same time. But despite this sudden twist that came out of nowhere, Kobato doesn't really do anything with this information. He doesn't go after Nakamaru to confront her about this or tries to find out if what's being said about Nakamaru is true. Instead, all he does is just simply continue on with his investigation with the arsons, which is again just another example of what are truly Kobato's priorities. Even when Kobato is trying to explain to his friend Kengo about who Nakamaru is, Kengo, who already knows what kind of person Kobato is and what really is the important things for Kobato, brushes it aside because he knows that Kobato is the last person that would prioritize anything else when he's in the middle of solving a mystery. So it's not shocking that the next time we see Kobato and Nakamaru interact is once again them spending time together. Even when Nakamaru tells Kobato that she has a curfew and they won't be able to see each other for too long, Kobato doesn't question it. She doesn't bring up anything that he heard of, which confuses Nakamaru, which is an indication that by this point it seems that she's become fully aware that Kobato does know a few things about her, that he is not confronting her about it, which for her is really strange. But even though Kobato has no intentions of telling Nakamaru what he knows of her, he starts to really show Nakamaru the true person that he is, as when they both end up going to a restaurant, specifically because Nakamaru wanted to order a cold pasta, instead what she orders is a hot pasta, since the cold pasta that she wanted is sold out. But when the hot pasta comes with a salad, Kobato is quick to eat the tomatoes of that salad, which confuses Nakamaru as to why he did that, and he explains that the reason why is because he thought that she didn't like tomatoes, as due to her not ordering the other cold pasta that had tomatoes, this led to Kobato reaching the conclusion that she does not like tomatoes. But even though he was confident in this answer, he was entirely wrong, as Nakamaru would tell him that the reason why she ordered a hot pasta instead of the other cold pasta was that it not only looked nice on the menu, but also it was much more cheaper. This leads to an awkward moment of silence, but it did reveal two important things. One is that Kobato's obsession with solving mysteries, no matter how big or small that mystery is, he always wants to get involved with that mystery, ignoring all the consequences that may happen or how many people see him. For him, it doesn't matter as long as he is the one, specifically the one that solves the mystery. It reveals that not only does Kobato have a huge ego, but it's because of that ego that Kobato doesn't have a lot of friends, why he doesn't have a good social life, and it's because Kobato has never deemed those things as important things in his life. He always views solving his mysteries as the most important thing, because as long as he's able to solve something that's not something that others can solve, that's all that matters, because for him, that makes him a better person than the rest of the others. The second thing that was revealed in this moment was that Nakamaru realized that Kobato never cared about this relationship from the start. It was something that she really started to realize when she noticed that there was no changes whatsoever in their relationship. Everything was still the same since the day Kobato accepted being in a relationship with her. It's this realization that leads to Nakamaru wanting to end things with Kobato as soon as possible. And while yes, Nakamaru is still not a great person and she still sucks for cheating while still in a relationship with Kobato, but when she lashes out towards Kobato, you can't really disagree with what she was saying. When she calls him an egomaniac, when she tells him how normally when a guy finds out that their girlfriend is cheating on them, they have a reaction, but when it came to Kobato, he acted like nothing happened. He acted like what he heard was not a big deal, and that's because at the end of the day, he just didn't care. He never cared about this relationship at all. He never showed any signs that he wanted this relationship to truly mean something, because just like Osanai, he only used it as an experiment. Just like Osanai, he used this in order to see if he can be an ordinary person. And what makes this moment eerie is how Kobato is reacting when Nakamaru is saying all this, and it's just simply him smiling at everything that he's hearing. He's not trying to defend himself or have a counter argument, he's just simply listening to everything she says. And the reason why he's doing this is probably because he knows deep inside that this is all true. He does have an ego. He does indeed not care about this relationship. So there's no point in arguing against it if even he knows himself that what Nakamaru is saying isn't a complete lie. The only time he gets defensive is when Nakamaru tells him that this is probably the relationship that he had with Osanai, and as soon as he heard that, he was very quick to say it's not true, proving once again that Osanai is truly the only girl that Kobato really does see as important, which is why after Nakamaru ends a relationship with Kobato, Kobato and Osanai are very quick to reunite, as they come to realize that instead of trying to be ordinary people, they should just be themselves. Even if they are very odd individuals, that's the thing that they're able to connect with each other. And what you can take away from these two situations is that it's always important to find the right person, because if the relationship doesn't have any good chemistry, then that relationship isn't going to last long. And while it's obvious that Kobato and Osanai use the relationship just to be something that they're not, what these relationships did showcase is just how completely different they were from their partners. And when you have two completely different people with two completely different personalities, and when the two people in that relationship have nothing in common and have their own set of issues, it's hard to see that kind of relationship have a bright future. And that's exactly what we saw from these two relationships from this series. And that's where I'm going to end today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.